Hi guys, it's Erin from Ginger's Florals. Today with the weather outside, let me show you. Yeah, it seemed like a good day to talk about hardy annuals. So what is a hardy annual? In this video, I want to answer that question and talk about what the differences are between hardy annuals, tender annuals, and biennials. I've had a few of you ask this question, so I'm hopeful that this will help answer some of your questions. So the short answer is that a hardy annual is a plant that grows for one season, any annuals like that, but it does better in the cooler temperatures and can handle most harsh winter weather. Depending on your zone, it might actually prefer to be sown in the fall and grown over winter and bloom in the earliest parts of spring. A tender annual is again a one season, 1 year plant, but it cannot handle the colds. Things like zinnias, celosia, lots of tender annuals out there that you can't plant outside until after any danger of frost has passed. So that's the difference between a tender and a hardy. Hardy annual can handle the winter. Tender annual will not survive in the winter. Now, biennials, they take 2 seasons to bloom. After a biennial blooms, they will drop seed and those seeds will set that first year and they'll just create a tuft of green on the top, and then they will overwinter, and then in the spring they will shoot up and actually bloom. So it takes 2 seasons to get to blooms on a biennial. Now, focusing in on the hardy annuals, these are some of the absolute earliest blooms in the garden. I adore so many of them. And depending on your zone, a lot more than you think could be a hardy annual. You can also sow many hardy annuals early in the winter time to get those blooms. They will come on a little bit later than the winter or the fall sown, and they will not be quite as sturdy of a plant and may not produce as much, but you can still do it, especially if you live in really cold zones like 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, anything really cold. I'm in a zone 8, so I can grow a lot of hardy annuals fall planted and spring blooming. Hardy annual, if you do start it in the spring, you can and should plant it out before the first frost of your season. They definitely need to be in the ground earlier than you would think. So these guys, I'd sow the seeds early enough so that they can be planted out in, for me, early to mid-March, because my hardiness zone, my last frost date is April, the first part of April. So go back about a month is when I want to be planting all of these hardy annuals out into the field. So you'll just have to do the math for what works with your zone. In my zone, like I said, they can be planted in the fall. I plant them out 6 to 8 weeks. When I'm going to do this, I plant them out 6 to 8 weeks before the first frost, which means I have to start them indoors even sooner if I'm going to start them. If I'm going to just direct sow, that's fine. But the 6 to 8 weeks gives it time for the roots to establish and the plant to get really settled in before any freezing temperatures hit. If you do it too late, they can be a bit more susceptible to the cold. Like I said, you can also plant them out in the spring. When I do this, I didn't do a lot of it this year, but when I do this, I also sow again in the winter so that I can plant them out in March and then get basically a second succession of those same hardy annuals. It's kind of crazy to think of when you're putting out these tiny little seedlings out into the ground in March, like a month before my last frost. It's so cold, but that's also past when our coldest days will be in the winter. So I don't worry so much about the plants freezing. Most of our coldest temperatures, today would prove it, are in January and February. So planting them out in March, it'll get cold, they'll get frost nipped, but it won't be a hard freeze generally for us. There's always a risk. You can never actually predict the weather, so tread tread lightly, but be confident, because these plants are a lot tougher than they look. There's another thing about having hardy annuals in the ground over the winter, is that soil structure holds up better, and just the whole health of your soil will benefit from having living plants and living roots in the soil all season long. If you leave your soil bare, like, I'm not gonna lie, I've done quite a bit of that this season. I have some hardy annuals out there, but some of them didn't make it for the winter. But either way, the weather and the rains and whatnot will wash away a lot of the nutrients and good things in your soil. But if you have plants in there, they'll hold on to them a lot better. It's just one more potential positive to growing hardy annuals. Now, I'm gonna list off a few of my favorites that I do try to grow as hardy annuals. Whether I am successful or not any given year is debatable. But here, my list I have right here is Black-Eyed Susans. Definitely left a whole section of them out in the field, hoping that they will come out or come back next season. I would go with the like Indian summer type varieties or triloba, not necessarily cherry brandy or Sahara. They're a little less hardy, I think, than the other two. But Bells of Ireland, we just did a video the other day. I've just sown my first round. I did get those sown out in the field last fall. I see a few little starts, but my hard part is direct seeding. I have a lot of wildlife, and sometimes the birds like to eat my seeds before they ever have a chance to germinate. So I have some out there. They definitely overwintered, but I just sowed a whole new flat of them just to make sure that I have enough. Another one is Buplurum. Also, I sowed out there, and I will also sow another round of it. Larkspur, same thing. Feverfew, I tried to sow last year for hardy annual, or for an overwintering crop, but my seeds didn't germinate for whatever reason, so I'll do another round of those. Ice and poppies are actually a good one, and I've done that several times. And I didn't this year. I didn't grow any last year at all, but I've got some sown, and they're grown in the greenhouse to be put out in March. And then snapdragons. I have done snapdragons more than once. The first year was kind of rough because it got colder than we normally get that winter, and I lost a few of the plants. But overall, the snapdragons put out healthier, stronger stems, more stems out of the plants that I sowed in the fall, rather than the ones that I resowed in the spring, or the winter into spring. It was night and day of the quality of the flower for those. This coming year, I plan, I should say, to do a whole lot more hardy annual sowing to make sure that we get the best plants in the spring and the earliest I can possibly get them. Okay, I know this is a quick one. There is just a few little bits and pieces. So generally, a hardy annual is a plant that likes the cool weather. It thrives in the cool weather. It does not want to be growing out in the heat. So if you're in a warmer zone, I would say zone 7 and up, absolutely try fall sowing. Make sure that you get them out, planted into the ground that 6 to 8 week window before your first frost. Which means back the time up for how long you need to get them sown and grown on before they're ready to be transplanted. They will definitely reward you in the spring with early blooms, stronger blooms, and you can also, if they didn't take, or if you want a succession of plants, also sow them again in midwinter and get them planted out that 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost. For me, it's March. Get them out into the ground and give them a chance to get in there, get settled, get rooted, and that way when they do bloom, it'll be earlier in the spring, and they'll be much happier. Okay, so like I said, I hope this answered some of your questions. So for most people, right now, this late January, early February is the time to sow those hardy annuals. You'll watch in the next few videos, I will be sowing a lot of them. Some of them I already have, and some I will be sowing more of. And I would also recommend that you mark your calendars now for this coming season, because when you're in the thick of it in August, it's hard to remember that you need to sow seeds for the following spring. So mark your calendars now so that you get a reminder for this coming season to start your seeds early enough and get them planted out in time to overwinter in your garden. And I've said in videos past, if you want to learn really in-depth answers about growing cool flowers, this book, this Lisa Mason Ziegler's Cool Flowers book, will tell you all the details of everything you need to know about growing hardy annuals and biennials, all the cool flowers as she tags them. They are some of the best, and this is definitely like a textbook you can take with you and plan your field with. She's got details for every kind of flower that you can possibly grow and overwinter. So get this book if you haven't already. I highly, highly recommend it. Everything that I just told you came from this book. It's just a condensed version, but do give this a try. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you learned something. If I didn't answer the question well enough, leave a comment and let me know, and I'll try to answer them for you. Yeah, if you liked it, leave a thumbs up. Like I said, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.